Hi everybody, this is John Watkins. We just got back from a 2-week cruise on Viking called the British Isle Explorer. It was on the Viking Saturn, and we traveled all around the British Isles, including stops in Wales, Scotland, the Orkney Islands. We also made a stop in Dublin, Ireland, and the cruise ended in Viking's home port of Bergen, Norway. In a series of videos, I'm going to show you our favorite stops along the trip. In this part 1, we're going to look at the stops in London, Dover, including some World War II sites, and then also Dublin. And we'll cover other stops in other ports of call in future videos. Finally, I'm going to post a video on my impressions of Viking. Spoiler alert, we were very satisfied, but more on that later. As I said, the first stop was in London. And this is Greenwich in London, viewed from the balcony of our ship, the Viking Saturn. It's kind of a gray, I guess you'd call it a London-y style day. Thursday in late July. And we are docked right in the Thames, so it's pretty convenient once you get here, although you have to take a tender on and off the ship. Probably see down there the Cutty Sark, and we are right where Greenwich Mean Time originates. Our first excursion was a cruise on a boat up the Thames. As we left, we were fortunate enough to see a rainbow that appeared just before sun was setting. But unfortunately, rainbows are always a little bit fleeting. As things continued, we saw familiar sights such as the Tower Bridge, which frames the tower known as the Shard in this photo. And here's the Tower of London as seen from the Thames. And here's the familiar London Eye, all lit up as evening begins. And of course, there's always Big Ben, perhaps the quintessential symbol of London, and the tower in the background. And here's the Tower Bridge all lit up as it gets darker. And we had some views of more modern parts of the London skyline. And here's a view as the cruise was about ready to end. It was a nice way to start the trip. The next morning, our guide Dawn led us on a tour of the famous Tower of London, seen here in front of a truly ancient wall. We saw the King's Guard. We saw the famous Traitors' Gate. And the infamous place where Henry VIII's queens were supposedly executed. We saw the crown jewels, but you can't take photos of them, so we took some photos of these nice beefeaters instead. And we saw statues of some animals that were supposedly kept here when the tower was used as a zoo many years ago. And we saw a real tower raven. The tower was, as you might expect, in the summer months pretty crowded, and you need to see it. There's so much history here, but we would recommend perhaps visiting in a less touristy time of the year. Overnight, the Saturn headed to Dover and the county of Kent, where so many important World War II sites are located. These are the White Cliffs of Dover, I do believe. Now we are coming into port early in the morning. It is a beautiful morning too. Closer view, closer still. In Dover, we took the Britain at War land tour, which was one of our favorites. It was quite a long tour. This is Ramsgate and the man-made harbor, which has a great significance to World War II because this is where the little boats gathered to go across the channel in 1940 to attempt the rescue, which was ultimately successful at Dunkirk, to return the stranded soldiers of Britain, France, and Belgium to the UK to fight another day. A really seminal event of World War II, and without it, the outcome might have been different. And here's another view of the harbor at Ramsgate. You can see how it was constructed, and back there's a passage in and out to the sea. Get a little closer view of that. Try to anyway. It's a very active, very fascinating place. Very, very old, very interesting. This is a Supermarine Spitfire at the Spitfire-Hurricane Museum, where they have examples of both of these important World War II fighters on display. And here's another view of the Spitfire. Some say it's the plane that won the Battle of Britain, but Hurricane was, some say, at least equally important. And here's the Hurricane, which to the thinking eye looks a lot like the Spitfire, but it was an earlier design, but a very effective plane. Very effective indeed. They built a lot of them. And here's another view of the Hurricane. Small museum, but it's worth a stop. My favorite stop on the Battle of Britain tour was to stop at the Battle of Britain Memorial just outside of Dover. We heard a really informative talk from the manager of the memorial, Jules Gomez, and somehow Jules arranged for a Spitfire to fly over just right after we got to the museum. And here's some video on this great memorial. We are on the top of the White Cliffs of Dover, looking across toward France. Clouded up. Looks like you might be able to see a little bit of land out there, but this is at the memorial to the few, the fighter pilots, the Spitfire pilots, and the Hurricane pilots who fought for Britain in World War II. It's really an interesting memorial and museum. They have some interactive exhibits and some replica planes, and memorial to the brave pilots who fought. And this is the museum. There's a statue of a young airman gazing out in the sea, and the replicas of the units that fought around him. You can see the museum is kind of built like a Spitfire with the the unique shape of the Spitfire wing framing the wings of the museum. This is a wall that has the names of all the people who fought in the Battle of Britain. And there's some statues of important leaders here. And this is a replica of a Hurricane. Looks just like the real one we saw at the Spitfire-Hurricane Museum earlier this afternoon. There's a space for a model of a Spitfire, but it was damaged in a storm and they're awaiting a replacement. This is a sculpture of a German Stuka dive bomber. It seems out of place at this museum, but apparently the sculptor was obsessed with this airplane, and at least it looks like it's crashed, so I guess there's that that much. By the way, the inside of the museum does not allow photography or filming, with very limited exceptions, so I can't really show you that. But it's a really nicely done memorial to these very brave young men who literally saved Western democracy. We owe a lot to them, as Winston Churchill said. After a somewhat rocking journey up the Irish Sea, our next stop was in Dublin in the Republic of Ireland. This is St. Patrick's Cathedral in Dublin. It's Sunday morning, about 11 o'clock. Beautiful day. And this is the park next to the cathedral. It's very busy. Some people out. And you can hear the bells of the church. Well, here we are in Dublin, little afternoon on Sunday. It's the day of the all-Irish football match. There are fans in town. This is the iconic scene of the river with the bridges. We just think we saw a seal come by, actually. It's kind of odd. But probably see some either gulls or ducks down there.
It's all about getting the right level
street performer in Dublin.
Ingredients. So now, to complement this even more, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the guitar into a drum, and we're going to play some percussion on the body of the guitar.
Bad. Show you some more of the street scene.
Alright, it's building up, we're doing good. Now we're going to add in a bit of a bass song.
See the street scene here. Of course, there's a McDonald's. Let's see how this guy sounds now that he's getting wound up. At least I think he is. This is part of Trinity College in Dublin, which we were told has about 20,000 students. And you can see it's Sunday and just a beautiful, beautiful summer afternoon. Lots of people are out here just kind of chilling out and enjoying the weather. It's a pretty place. And here's some more of Trinity College, another quad. Some construction, which seems to be prevalent everywhere. Oh well. Well, we really enjoyed our stop in Dublin as well as our stops in London and Dover and Kent. I think you can see that you cover an awful lot of ground on these Viking cruises, and you can see an awful lot of things. But don't worry, there's more to come. This is only the start of the journey. Talk to you next time.